Welcome back to Science and Slumber, the quiet place where we ask the universe its gentlest questions and listen for the softest answers in the dark. Tonight, we're going on a slow, soothing journey to the very edge of human possibility. We will be asking a simple, profound question. Can we ever truly leave our home and touch the shores of another star? It sounds like a straightforward question, but the deeper you fall into it, the more it unwraps the fundamental rules of the cosmos, the quiet laws that govern speed and distance and time itself. I hope this story helps you drift off into a deep and peaceful sleep, or perhaps it keeps you pleasantly curious, floating in that calm space between wakefulness and dreams. If you feel you have a moment, and you can do so without stirring, a gentle tap on the like button, and maybe a quiet subscription, helps this sleepy little channel grow in the most peaceful way. I often wonder where you are listening from tonight. Are you in a quiet room in a city that has just fallen asleep, with the distant hum of life outside your window? Or are you somewhere far away, under a dark sky, with the real stars themselves scattered above you? Wherever you are welcome here. Settle in now. Get comfortable. There is nothing you need to do, nothing to remember. Let the words wash over you, like the faint, ever-present glow of the cosmic background radiation, a gentle warmth left over from the beginning of everything. Let your mind drift. Ready? Let's begin. Let's begin in a place that feels familiar, a place of gentle light and graceful motion. Imagine our solar system as a calm, secluded harbour at night. At its centre is our sun, a single brilliant lighthouse, casting its warm golden light across the water. Close to this lighthouse, a family of small islands and rocky outcrops circle in slow, predictable orbits. These are the inner planets: Mercury, Venus, our Earth and Mars. You can almost imagine hopping from one to the next in a small boat, each one a knowable shore, a destination you can chart a course to. Further out, in the deeper, darker waters of the harbour, drift the great gas giants, like colossal silent buoys, their surfaces swirling with soft muted colours. Jupiter, Saturn with its ethereal rings, Uranus and Neptune. This is our home. It feels vast, but it is contained. The lighthouse of the sun is always visible, a comforting presence that keeps everything tethered. We have sent our little probes, our robotic explorers, to visit every one of these neighbours. They are all within our reach. This harbour is our known world, and for all of human history, it has been the entirety of our map. Now, let's slowly, gently begin to pull away. Imagine we are in a vessel gliding silently out of this harbour, past the orbit of the last great planet, Neptune. The lighthouse of our sun begins to shrink, its warm, golden glow becoming a smaller, sharper point of brilliant white light. The familiar islands and buoys fade into the background, eventually becoming indistinguishable from the other, more distant lights that dot the darkness. We have left the harbour. We are now entering the open ocean, and it is here that we begin to understand what the universe is truly made of. It is made of emptiness. The water of this cosmic ocean is a blackness so deep and so complete that it feels like a solid thing. There is no up, no down. There is no sound, only a profound and perfect silence that has existed for billions of years. As we drift further, the last faint lights of our home port vanish entirely. We are alone in the great void. What this really means is that the universe is not a collection of stars with space in between them. It is a collection of spaces, with a few impossibly rare stars sprinkled within it. The distances are so immense that they defy our intuition. If our sun were the size of a grain of sand held in your hand in New York City, the nearest star, Proxima Centauri, would be another grain of sand more than 4 miles away, somewhere in a different neighbourhood entirely. And in between those 2 grains of sand, there would be nothing. Not a speck of dust, not a mote of light, just miles and miles of still, quiet, empty blackness. Our Voyager probes, the furthest human-made objects, are now drifting through this very emptiness. For decades, they have travelled, and they have not yet even truly begun to cross that 4-mile gap. They are like tiny, silent messages in a bottle, cast from our shore, destined to drift in this incomprehensibly vast and silent ocean for longer than human civilization has existed. In other words, the space between the stars is a different kind of empty than an empty room. An empty room is full of air, of faint sounds, of subtle drafts. This cosmic emptiness is a perfect vacuum, colder and quieter than anything we have ever experienced on Earth. It is an emptiness that actively separates things, that makes journeys not a matter of days or years, but of millennia. To travel from our sun to the next nearest star is to cross an ocean more vast than all the oceans of Earth combined, multiplied by 1,000,000,000. It is a journey across an abyss of pure, patient, and unwavering distance. There's something quietly poetic about this idea. The universe built its most beautiful islands of light, the stars, but it placed them so far apart that visiting them feels like a dream. And yet, this sheer, overwhelming distance isn't even the deepest part of the problem. There is a quiet, universal speed limit written into the fabric of this ocean itself. This fundamental rule of the cosmic ocean is not a suggestion or a guideline. It is a law woven into the fabric of reality itself, as essential and unbreakable as the flow of time. It is, of course, the speed of light. We often hear this phrase, but it's worth letting its true meaning settle in, like dust motes in a quiet room. The speed of light is the universe's absolute, ultimate velocity, 186,282 miles per second. It is a speed so fast that a single particle of light, a photon, could circle the entire Earth 7.5 times in the space of a single, silent heartbeat. Nothing with mass can ever reach it, and nothing at all, not even information itself, can ever surpass it. It is the cosmic speed limit. To make this feel more intimate, imagine you are not in a ship, but walking along an endless, perfectly straight road that stretches across the entire universe. The road is made of space-time, and its surface is a deep, velvety black. There are no signs, no painted lines, just the road itself, extending into infinity. On this road, there is a speed limit. It's not a punishment or a barrier you might one day break. It is a property of the road itself. As you begin to move faster and faster, you don't feel a wind in your face or the rumble of the ground. Instead, you begin to feel a strange, gentle resistance from the universe itself. The road ahead seems to stretch. The energy you need to take just one more step grows exponentially. It is as if the universe is whispering, "This is as fast as things go here. You are not hitting a wall. You are reaching the natural pace of existence." In other words, the speed of light isn't a technological challenge like breaking the sound barrier was. It's not something we can overcome with a more powerful engine or a more clever design. It is a fundamental property of causality, of cause and effect. What this really means is that the universe has a rhythm, a maximum tempo, and everything within it. Light, gravity, information, you must dance to that same unchanging beat. A young patent clerk, Albert Einstein, first understood this, not in a grand laboratory, but through a simple, beautiful thought experiment. He wondered, in the quiet moments of his day, what it would be like to ride alongside a beam of light, and in chasing that beautifully simple, almost childlike image, he uncovered this profound truth, that the speed of light is constant for everyone, everywhere, no matter how fast they are moving. It is the great anchor of reality. There's something quietly poetic about this idea. The universe in all its infinite vastness has a single unifying rule of motion. This rule doesn't just make interstellar travel difficult, it redefines the very nature of the journey. Even if we could build a ship that traveled at 99.9% of this ultimate speed, the trip to our nearest stellar neighbor would still take over 4 years. At the absolute fastest speed the universe allows, the journey is still longer than a human lifetime, just a few generations ago. The sheer emptiness is one challenge, but the universe's own speed limit is another, a gentle but firm boundary on our dreams of a quick voyage. It tells us that any journey we take will, by necessity, be a long and patient one. The speed of light, then, is the universe's ultimate horizon of speed, and yet, the pace of our own most ambitious journeys tells a much quieter and far more patient story. If the speed of light is the universe's ultimate untouchable horizon, then our own fastest ships are like stones skipping across the surface of that cosmic ocean, their momentum fading almost instantly, their journeys barely beginning before they end. To feel this, we can turn our attention to the most distant travelers we have ever created, the Voyager probes. Launched in a quieter, more hopeful time, they are now gliding through the profound, silent emptiness beyond our solar harbor. They are humanity's first true interstellar messengers, and their journey reveals the humbling scale of our current reach. The most fitting way to imagine them is as messages in a bottle, cast into a perfectly still, perfectly black ocean that stretches on forever. Imagine holding one of these bottles just before letting it go. It isn't made of glass, but of metal and wire, a delicate, spidery machine built by human hands. Tucked inside is not a paper scroll, but a golden record. On its surface are etched the sights and sounds of our world, the cry of a newborn baby, the rhythm of falling rain, the intricate beauty of bark, and greetings spoken in dozens of human languages. It is a portrait of our world, a single hopeful hello from a species that had only just learned to walk on its own moon. We cast this bottle from our shore with a gentle push, and now it drifts on the slow, silent currents of the interstellar medium. It has no engine firing, no sails to catch a solar wind. It is simply coasting on the memory of its initial departure, a silent, lonely traveller in the great dark. There's something quietly poetic and almost heartbreaking about this idea. Those vibrant, living sounds, the call of a whale, the sound of human laughter, are encased in gold, travelling through a perfect vacuum where sound itself cannot exist. They are a silent concert for an audience that may never be found, a gesture of connection across an ocean of disconnection. The team of scientists and artists, led by the gentle stargazer Carl Sagan, who created this record, understood this. They knew they were likely creating a cosmic artifact, a beautiful piece of galactic driftwood that would outlive its creators, and perhaps even their entire civilization. It was a gesture of profound, patient hope, a handshake offered to the void, with no expectation of it ever being returned. What this really means is that these probes are not traveling in a way we can truly comprehend. Voyager 1 is moving at over 38,000 miles per hour, a speed that sounds incredible, and yet at that pace, it will take 40,000 years to come remotely close to another star. 40,000 years. To put that into perspective, the entirety of recorded human history, from the first written words in Mesopotamia to the quiet room you are in right now, is only about 5,000 years long. The Great Pyramids of Giza are young compared to the length of this single journey. In other words, Voyager is not truly traveling asterisk to asterisk another star system. It is simply, patiently, departing from ours. It has become a ghost ship, its nuclear heart growing colder with each passing year, its instruments falling silent one by one, its voice fading into the great cosmic hum. And the reason for this patient, silent crawl across the cosmos isn't a lack of ambition. It's a quiet, simple paradox, a puzzle of weight that every traveller must face. This quiet, crawling pace of our probes is not for lack of trying. It is born from a simple, elegant, and deeply profound paradox that governs all travel in the empty ocean of space. It is a puzzle of weight and energy, a quiet rule known as the rocket equation. And the best way to feel its immense power is not to think of a rocket at all, but to imagine a lone hiker standing at the edge of a vast, silent desert of golden sand. The air is still, the sun is a gentle warmth on their skin. Far, far away, on the other side of this desert, is a single distant mountain, its peak barely visible in the hazy air. This is their destination. The journey will take 1,000 years. Now imagine the backpack this hiker must carry. It is not a simple pack for a weekend trip. It must contain every meal, every single calorie of energy they will need for the entire 1,000-year journey. The backpack is not something they can wear. It is a mountain in itself, a colossal tower of supplies that looms behind them, casting a shadow that stretches for miles. To take the very first step of their 1,000-year journey, the hiker must summon the strength to lift this entire mountain of food. But the energy required to lift such an impossible weight requires more food, which must also be added to the mountain, making it even heavier. This in turn requires even more energy, and so even more food. The hiker is trapped in a quiet, recursive loop before they have even taken a single step. The simple act of beginning the journey becomes the most difficult part, a feat of impossible strength. This is the tyranny of the rocket equation. Our rocket is that lonely hiker. Its fuel is the food in that impossibly heavy backpack. To push a tiny capsule across the void, the rocket must carry all of its fuel with it. But to carry that fuel, it needs more fuel. And to carry that asterisk fuel, it needs yet more. The result is that a rocket, like the Saturn V that carried humans to the moon, is not a sleek vehicle with a fuel tank. It is a colossal, towering fuel tank, with a tiny, precious vehicle perched on its very top. Almost all of its immense structure is dedicated to the single task of carrying the energy needed for the next few moments of its flight. This elegant and somewhat cruel principle was first understood not in a bustling space agency, but in the quiet mind of a nearly deaf provincial Russian schoolteacher named Konstantin Tsiolkovsky. Working in solitude at the turn of the 20th century, he filled notebooks with elegant equations, dreaming of humanity's future among the stars. It was he who first saw this beautiful, unyielding logic. With chalk and a dusty blackboard, he realized that to escape the Earth, a rocket would have to be an offering of itself. It would have to consume its own body for fuel, shedding its own weight piece by piece, just to give a tiny part of itself the freedom of the void. In other words, most of the work a rocket does is not in carrying its astronauts or its scientific instruments, but in carrying its own fuel just a little bit higher, just a little bit faster. There's something quietly poetic about this idea. The rocket is a beautiful temporary vessel whose entire purpose is to sacrifice itself for the final tiny payload. It is a journey that consumes the traveler, leaving only a whisper of its former self to complete the final leg of the voyage. This puzzle of weight makes interstellar travel with chemical rockets a near impossibility. The backpack of fuel you would need would be larger than our sun, and yet this puzzle of mass, of the sheer weight of fuel, hints at an even deeper, quieter wall we have to face, a wall of pure energy itself. Beyond the puzzle of mass, of the impossibly heavy backpack of fuel, lies a deeper and more fundamental barrier. It is a quiet, invisible wall, made not of matter, but of pure energy. It is the price the universe demands for speed, and it is a price so high that it can feel like a gentle cosmic refusal. To truly feel this scale, let us return to the shore of that vast, dark ocean. The water is perfectly still, a sheet of black glass that mirrors a sky filled with a billion silent stars. The air is cool, and the only sound is the gentle rhythmic lapping of the water against the sand. You are standing at the edge of this cosmic sea, and in your hand you hold a single, small, ordinary cup. Your task is not to cross this ocean, but something that sounds much simpler. You must raise its level. You must add enough water, one cup at a time, to make the entire boundless ocean rise by just a single inch. You kneel down, dip the cup into the cool, dark water, and pour it back into the sea. The sound is a soft, satisfying whisper, a brief disturbance in the perfect stillness. You do it again and again, falling into a slow, meditative rhythm. The cup fills, you lift, you pour. The stars above do not move. The horizon, impossibly distant, does not change. With every cup you add, you are expending effort, you are doing work, but the ocean itself, in its unimaginable vastness, does not respond. The sheer volume of water is so immense that your contribution, your constant, patient effort, is statistically zero. It is absorbed into the whole without a trace. To raise this ocean by a single inch would take you longer than the age of the universe. Your entire lifetime of effort would not create a single measurable ripple. This is the wall of energy. That great dark ocean is the kinetic energy a starship must accumulate to travel at a significant fraction of the speed of light. The small cup in your hand represents the total energy output of our entire human civilization at this very moment. Every power plant, every engine, every watt of electricity we generate and use across the globe, all focused into a single point to push a single ship. Even with all that power, our combined effort poured into that ship is like that single cup of water poured into the endless ocean. It is a contribution so small, it is functionally meaningless. The energy required to accelerate a vessel to near light speed is not just more than we have, it is more than we can currently comprehend having. In other words, the energy cost of speed is not a straight line. It is a curve that grows steeper and steeper until it becomes a vertical wall. To go twice as fast requires 4 times the energy. To go 10 times as fast requires 100 times the energy. But as you get closer and closer to the speed of light, the energy you need grows infinitely. You are trying to add a cup of water to an ocean that has become infinitely vast. What this really means is that the universe has placed a kind of energy tax on high-velocity travel, and that tax grows exponentially, bankrupting any traveler who tries to pay it. There's something quietly humbling about this idea. It reframes the problem of interstellar travel, not as one of engineering, but one of fundamental limits. We cannot simply build a bigger engine. We would need to become a civilization that wields the energy of entire stars, casually and easily. We would need to learn to collect and spend the light of our own sun, just to begin the journey. It is a wall that seems for now to be perfectly smooth and infinitely high, and yet if you could somehow pay this impossible price, if you could pour that ocean of energy into your journey, the universe offers you a quiet, secret reward in return. The reward isn't about going faster, it's about the strange and beautiful way that time itself begins to bend. If you could somehow find the energy to climb that impossible wall, if you could pour an entire ocean's worth of power into a single vessel, the universe would offer you something in return. It is not a prize you can hold or a destination you can see. It is a quiet, subtle, and profoundly strange gift. The fabric of reality itself begins to warp around you, and the steady, familiar rhythm of time begins to change its beat. This is the core of our journey, the central idea that shifts interstellar travel from a problem of engineering to a beautiful and deeply human paradox. The faster you move through space, the slower you move through time. To feel this, imagine time not as a clock on the wall, but as a vast, wide, and silent river flowing ever so slowly through a dark and quiet landscape. Every person, every living thing on Earth is in a small, simple boat, and all of these boats are drifting together, carried downstream by the same gentle current. This is our shared experience of time. We are all moving from the past to the future at the same steady, predictable pace. The scenery on the riverbanks changes for all of us at the same rate. This is the river of time as we know it, a communal journey. But you are in a different kind of boat. Your boat has a powerful silent engine, and you have decided not to drift downstream with everyone else. Instead, you turn your boat 90 degrees and begin to travel across the river, from one bank to the other. As you pour energy into your journey across the water, a strange thing happens. The more speed you gain in moving from bank to bank, that is, the faster you move through space, the less progress you make moving downstream with the current. The other boats, the ones still drifting with the gentle flow of time, pull ahead of you. From your perspective, their journey into the future seems to be accelerating. From their perspective, as they glance over their shoulders, your boat seems to be almost frozen in place, your progress downstream slowing to a near-perfect standstill. You are expending all of your energy fighting the current, moving sideways through the river of time. In other words, your personal clock begins to tick more slowly than the clocks of everyone you left behind. This isn't a mechanical trick or an illusion. It is a fundamental property of the universe's geometry. Space-time, that single unified fabric of reality that Albert Einstein revealed to us in a moment of quiet genius, is like that river. We all have a finite amount of motion we can expend through it. The more of your motion you dedicate to moving through space, the less you have left over for moving through time. There's something quietly poetic about this idea. Time is not a single universal metronome, clicking at the same rate for everyone, everywhere. It is a personal, flexible rhythm, a private melody that is unique to your own journey through the cosmos. What this really means is that speed in space buys you time. It shortens the journey. A trip to a star 4 light-years away might take 4 years from the perspective of an observer on Earth. But for you, the traveler moving at near light speed, the journey could feel like it takes only a few months, or even a few weeks. The universe offers you this gift, this compression of your own personal time, allowing you to cross the impossible ocean in a single lifetime. It is the universe's only real concession to the interstellar dreamer. But this gift is not free. It is a trade. This slowing of your clock, this beautiful personal melody of time, comes with a quiet and truly profound price. This gift from the universe, this slowing of your personal time, is a trade, a profound and beautiful bargain. To truly feel its weight, imagine 2 clocks, built at the very same moment, by the very same artisan. They are identical in every way, their pendulums perfectly weighted, their gears perfectly aligned. They begin to tick at the exact same instant, a single unified heartbeat that marks the beginning of our story. One of these clocks we will leave here on Earth. Let's place it in a quiet room, perhaps in a library, with tall sunlit windows. It is a beautiful grandfather clock, made of dark polished wood. Its tick is a steady, reassuring presence in the room. Tock, tick, asterisk. As the days turn into nights, the sunlight streams through the window, illuminating the slow, graceful dance of dust motes in the air. Outside the window, the seasons change. Green leaves turn to gold, fall, and are replaced by the stark white stillness of snow. The clock keeps ticking, its pendulum swinging, measuring the rhythm of a world at rest. The second clock, your clock, you take with you on your journey. It is not a grand wooden thing, but a small, sleek timepiece, its face glowing with a soft, gentle light on the dashboard of your starship. As you leave the Earth behind, pulling away with that impossible energy, your clock begins to behave differently. At first, the change is imperceptible, but as your speed increases, climbing ever closer to the ultimate speed of light, its familiar tick begins to soften, to stretch, to slow. The crisp asterisk tick-tock asterisk becomes a long, languid asterisk tick, two-ock asterisk. Outside your window, there are no seasons. There is only the unchanging, perfect black, studded with the sharp, silent diamonds of distant stars. Your clock is now measuring a different kind of time, a deep, slow, personal time, insulated from the frantic rush of the universe outside. Back in the library on Earth, the grandfather clock continues its steady, relentless beat. It measures the passing of a year, then 10 years, then 100. Generations are born, live their lives in the warm sunlight of that room, and pass away. The wood of the clock ages. The world outside the window transforms in ways that would be unrecognizable. All the while, the clock ticks on, a faithful keeper of a world's history. But on your ship, in the silent, timeless dark, your small clock has barely moved. Its second hand has completed only a few, slow, graceful sweeps. For the 100 years that have passed on Earth, a single year has passed for you. This is the traveler's gift. The universe has allowed you to cross an ocean of light years in what feels like a manageable time. You have traded the world's time for your own. In other words, you have been given a shortened life for your journey, at the price of the long life of the world you left behind. What this really means is that time dilation is not just a physical phenomenon, it is a profound choice. You are choosing your destination over your origin. You are choosing the future over the present. The gift of a manageable journey is paid for with the currency of everything and everyone you ever knew. There is something quietly poetic and almost tragic about this bargain. To reach for the stars, you must be willing to let go of the Earth, not just its gravity, but its shared moment in time, its asterisk, now asterisk. And so, the moment of your departure becomes something more than a simple goodbye. It becomes a quiet, final farewell to the very world you once knew. That quiet, final farewell is a moment of profound severance, a departure not just from a place, but from a time. Imagine it not as a loud, fiery launch, but as the silent, gentle snipping of a single luminous thread that connects you to your world. For your entire life, this thread has hummed with the shared rhythm of Earth's time, the collective now. It has carried the warmth of conversations, the rhythm of music, the weight of shared moments. Now, as your ship begins to accelerate, that thread is cut, and you are, for the first time, truly adrift. You look back at the Earth, that beautiful, swirling marble of blue and white, and you listen for its voice. Perhaps you have a live connection, a final message from someone you love. You hear their voice, clear and familiar, but as you gain speed, as you climb closer to that ultimate cosmic limit, their voice begins to change. The message stretches, the syllables elongate. A simple, "Goodbye, I love you," begins to descend in pitch, slowing into a deep, mournful sound, like a recording played at a fraction of its normal speed. The light from Earth itself shifts, its familiar colors deepening towards red. What you are witnessing is the echo of your departure. You are moving away from your home so fast that you are outrunning its present. The voice you are hearing is no longer a living voice. It is a ghost. It is a recording of a moment that, for the rest of the universe, has already passed into history. You are listening to the past, a message from a world that for you no longer exists in that form. Your ship has become a bubble of slow time, and as it pulls away, the rest of the universe seems to fast forward. In other words, your journey to the stars is a one-way trip into the future of the world you left behind. The moment you leave, the people you knew begin to live their lives at an accelerated rate from your perspective. Friends and family will grow old. New generations will be born, carrying stories about the ship that left in their distant past. The entire arc of a human life, birth, love, loss, could pass in the time it takes for you to feel like you've had a long nap. You are not just traveling away from them in space, You are traveling away from them in time and far more profoundly. What this really means is that interstellar travel, under the laws of relativity, is an act of becoming a ghost to your own history. You are voluntarily stepping out of the river of time that carries your entire species. The price of reaching another star is the forfeiture of your own. You can watch the echo of your world, that fading red light, that deepening mournful sound, but you can never rejoin that specific moment. It has been sealed off from you forever, like a room in a house whose door has vanished the moment you stepped through it. There's something quietly poetic and deeply melancholic about this realization. The journey is not an escape, but a form of self-imposed exile. You become a living fossil, a messenger from a time that the rest of humanity will soon remember, only in its digital archives. Every light year you cross is another century you leave behind on Earth. This echo of departure is a constant, gentle reminder that your destination is your only remaining home, because your origin has already moved on, drifted into a future you can never share. But this echo of departure is only half of the story. The other half is the profound silence that greets you upon your lonely return. The journey back is a mirror image of the journey out, a slow, patient rethreading of the cosmic needle. As you decelerate, the universe outside your window begins to slow its frantic pace. The deep red shifted light of your home star, our sun, brightens back into its familiar warm yellow. The river of time, which had been rushing past you, slows its current, allowing your small boat to gently merge back into its primary flow. From a great distance, everything looks exactly as you remember it. There is the blue marble of Earth, a perfect fragile jewel in the darkness. There is the pale, pockmarked face of the moon. It feels like coming home, but this feeling is an illusion, the last and most gentle trick of relativity. Imagine you have traveled the world for what feels like a year, and you are finally returning to the house where you grew up. You walk up the familiar path, and the key you've kept with you all this time still fits in the lock. You open the door, but the air inside is still and cold. The furniture is all there, exactly as you remember it, but it is covered in a thin, uniform layer of dust. The sunlight filtering through the windows seems weak and distant. It is your home, but it is also a museum to a life that is no longer lived there. You can look at the photographs on the wall, you can touch the worn fabric of a familiar chair, but you cannot feel the warmth of the life that once filled these rooms. You have returned not to a home, but to an echo. This is what awaits you. As your ship glides into orbit, the Earth below is a beautiful but alien tapestry. The continents are there, but their coastlines have subtly shifted. Where there was once a desert, you see a faint greenish hue. The patterns of city lights at night are a completely new and unfamiliar constellation, sprawling in ways you cannot comprehend. You open a communication channel, and the language that greets you is a distant descendant of your own, its rhythms and sounds familiar enough to be recognizable, but different enough to be incomprehensible, like trying to read a half-erased manuscript. You are a stranger, a visitor from a time they only know from their oldest archives. They may treat you with reverence, as a living piece of ancient history, but they cannot treat you as a contemporary. You are a relic from the deep past. In other words, you have not truly come home. You have arrived at a monument built on the spot where your home used to be, and the most disorienting moment comes at night, when you look up at the sky. The moon is there, and the planets, but the stars are wrong. Over the thousands of years that have passed, the slow, patient dance of the galaxy has continued. The familiar constellations, the signposts of your entire civilization's history, have drifted apart. The night sky is no longer your sky. It is the sky of a future you were never meant to see. There's something quietly devastating about this realization. The one constant in all of human history, the eternal patterns of the stars, has changed. What this really means is that the universe itself is confirming your displacement. You are not just disconnected from your people and your culture. You are disconnected from your place in the cosmos. Your journey has cost you not only your time, but your sky. And this quiet, personal cost forces us to ask a much deeper question, one that isn't about physics at all. This profound sense of disconnection, of returning to a sky that no longer knows you, forces us to ask the quietest and perhaps the most important question of all. The problem is no longer one of physics or engineering. It is a problem of purpose. If the price of reaching for a distant star is the loss of your own world, the forfeiture of your entire history, and the severance of every human connection, then why make the journey at all? The greatest barrier to interstellar travel may not be the speed of light, but the very nature of our own hearts. To feel this, imagine a master painter, the greatest artist who has ever lived. They are given a commission to create the most beautiful painting in existence. They are given a canvas the size of a mountain and pigments made from crushed starlight. They are told the work will take 1,000 years to complete, and they will be given a potion that grants them 1,000 years of life to finish it. The artist agrees and is taken to a secluded, silent valley where they can work in perfect peace. For a millennium, they pour their soul onto the canvas. They paint with a skill and a passion that no one has ever known, creating a masterpiece of such profound beauty that to look upon it would be to understand the meaning of the universe. When they are finally finished, after 1,000 years of solitary work, the painting is perfect, but the world that commissioned it has long since turned to dust. The people who asked for the painting are gone. The language they spoke is forgotten. The artist stands alone in a silent valley, before a work of absolute genius that no one will ever see. The purpose of the art to be shared, to be felt, to communicate, has vanished. This is the interstellar traveler. You are that artist. The star you reach is that beautiful, perfect painting. You have achieved the impossible. You have created this singular, beautiful moment of arrival. But who is it for? You cannot call home to share the news. You cannot send back a picture to a world that will receive it thousands of years in the future. A message from a long-dead ancestor. The very act of discovery is an entirely solitary one, robbing it of the shared joy that gives our endeavors meaning. We are a species that tells stories. It is at the core of who we are, but this is a story you can only tell to yourself. In other words, the ultimate challenge of interstellar travel is not about the vessel, but about the voyager. It asks us to become something other than what we are, a creature that can endure absolute, irreversible loneliness. What this really means is that the question shifts from how do we build a ship that can survive the void, to how do we build a person who can survive the meaninglessness of that journey's end. For a social creature like a human, defined by our connections to each other, a journey that permanently severs all connections is a kind of death in itself. There is something quietly paradoxical about this. The grandest possible journey of expansion for our species is also the most profound act of isolation for the individual. To plant the seed of humanity on a distant shore, a few human beings must agree to be cut away from the tree forever to become a piece of driftwood on a cosmic ocean. And yet, let us assume for a moment that we find a purpose, a reason profound enough to pay that price. We would then face a quiet truth about the journey itself. The great dark ocean is not as empty as it appears. It hides a subtle physical threat, a danger that is almost invisible. Let us imagine for a moment that we have found a reason, a purpose so profound that the loneliness of the journey becomes a worthy sacrifice. We have built our ship, we have gathered our impossible ocean of energy, and we have said our quiet final goodbye. The journey begins. Outside the window of our vessel is a perfect silent blackness, a void so complete it feels like the safest, most peaceful place in the universe. It seems empty, a realm of pure geometric distance, where the only thing to worry about is the slow, patient passage of time. But this perfect emptiness is an illusion. The space between the stars is not truly empty. It is filled with a thin, almost imperceptible mist of hydrogen atoms and tiny wandering grains of dust, remnants of ancient stars that have long since died. At the slow speeds of our current probes, this mist is as harmless as a morning fog, but at the speeds we must travel, it becomes the greatest physical threat of our entire journey. To understand this, let's leave our starship for a moment and find ourselves somewhere more familiar. Imagine you are driving a car at night, on a long, straight country road. A gentle rain begins to fall. The sound is one of the most soothing in the world, a soft rhythmic drumming on the roof and the windshield. The headlights illuminate the falling drops, turning them into a silvery hypnotic curtain. The windshield wipers sweep back and forth in a slow, graceful rhythm, clearing your view. You are warm, dry, and safe inside your little bubble of steel and glass, moving through a world that has been softened and quieted by the falling water. The rain is a gentle presence, something to be watched and listened to, but not feared. It is a perfect, peaceful moment of travel. Now, let's change one thing. Not the rain. The rain is just as gentle, the droplets just as small. We will change the speed of the car. Instead of 60 miles an hour, you are now moving at 99.9% the speed of light. At this velocity, the gentle, soothing rain becomes a weapon of unimaginable power. Each tiny, soft droplet, weighing only a fraction of a gram, now strikes your windshield with the kinetic energy of an explosion. The gentle drumming is replaced by a constant, deafening roar of impacts, a relentless series of detonations against the glass. The windshield, made of the strongest material imaginable, glows white-hot, vaporizing under the continuous assault. The car itself is not just being rained on, it is being sandblasted by a storm of microscopic bombs. Each impact a flash of brilliant, violent light. Your safe, cozy bubble is now at the heart of a cosmic furnace. This is what our starship must face. That thin, invisible mist of interstellar dust becomes a storm of hypervelocity projectiles. A single grain of sand, no bigger than the period at the end of a sentence, would strike the ship with more energy than a bolt of lightning. The ship is not flying through a vacuum, it is flying through a constant, unrelenting shower of microscopic shrapnel. In other words, the challenge is not avoiding the big things, like asteroids, which are so rare as to be a negligible threat. The challenge is surviving the constant, abrasive caress of the universe itself. What this really means is that the front of the ship must be protected by a shield of incredible power and resilience. It could be a physical shield, a mountain of ice or stone, many miles thick, designed to be slowly boiled away, eroded layer by layer over the course of the journey, like a bar of soap being worn down by water. Or it could be a shield of pure energy, a powerful magnetic field projected hundreds of thousands of miles ahead of the ship, designed to sweep the path clear of charged particles, like a great invisible cosmic broom. Either way, the ship must become a fortress, its journey not a silent glide, but a constant, violent battle against the very emptiness it is trying to cross. However, this physical erosion is only one part of the challenge. A quieter, more patient kind of rain falls out here, one that a shield cannot stop. Even with a shield that could withstand the constant storm of physical dust, a quieter, more patient rain is always falling in the deep dark. It is a rain of pure energy, of particles so small and so fast that they pass through the solid hull of a starship as if it were a phantom. This is the whisper of cosmic rays, and it is a threat that a shield of stone or energy cannot stop. It is a silent, invisible presence that works not on the scale of seconds, but of centuries, slowly and methodically unwriting the information that holds both a machine and a life together. To feel this, let's imagine a different kind of sanctuary. Picture a vast, open-air courtyard, paved with smooth white stones. At its very center, a master sculptor has carved a single perfect statue from a block of flawless white marble. It is a work of breathtaking detail. The gentle curve of a hand, the soft folds of a robe, a face filled with a serene, thoughtful expression. The statue is a perfect, intricate system, a testament to order and complexity. Now imagine a wind begins to blow through this courtyard. It is not a storm or a gale. It is the gentlest of breezes, a constant, almost imperceptible sigh of moving air. You can barely feel it on your skin, but this wind never ever stops. For thousands of years, day and night, summer and winter, this soft, patient wind blows across the face of the statue, and carried in that wind are the tiniest, most microscopic grains of sand, invisible to the naked eye. For the first year, there is no change. For the first decade, the statue remains perfect. But after a century, if you look very, very closely, you might notice that the sharpest edges of the robe are just a little softer. After 1,000 years, the fine details of the face have begun to blur, the serene expression slowly fading into a smooth, featureless surface. After 10,000 years, the statue is no longer a work of art. It is a rounded, weathered stone, its original, complex form just a faint memory. The gentle, patient wind has won. It has not shattered the statue with a single violent blow, but has instead slowly, quietly erased it, one microscopic grain at a time. This gentle, patient wind is the constant flow of cosmic radiation. These are not simple particles of dust. They are the hearts of atoms, protons, helium nuclei, flung across the galaxy by ancient cataclysmic explosions of distant supernovas. They travel at nearly the speed of light, and they carry an incredible amount of energy. When one of these particles passes through the hull of your ship, it doesn't stop. It leaves a ghostly track of ionization in its wake, like a phantom needle stitching its way through the ship's electronics. and the very DNA of its crew. A single particle might flip a single bit in a computer's memory, changing a 1 to a 0. It might snip a single strand in a chain of DNA. In other words, the damage is not loud or dramatic. It is quiet, subtle, and statistical. A single cosmic ray is harmless, but over the decades and centuries of a long voyage, millions and billions of them will pass through the ship. The computer will begin to make tiny, imperceptible errors. The living cells of the crew will find their genetic code slowly, randomly rewritten, the risk of disease growing with each passing year. The ship itself, and everyone inside it, is that marble statue, being slowly and gently sandblasted into a simpler, more chaotic form. What this really means is that a starship cannot just be strong, it must be alive. It must be able to heal. Its computers would need constant error correction, systems of triple and quadruple redundancy, always checking and rechecking their own work. The life support systems would need to be capable of advanced genetic repair, constantly mending the slow, cumulative damage to the crew. The journey becomes a constant, quiet battle against universal entropy. And this quiet realization that the ship must endure for centuries, not decades, pushes us away from the idea of a simple voyage and towards the idea of a world in miniature, a self-contained ark designed to carry not a crew, but a civilization. The quiet, constant battle against the slow erosion of cosmic rays forces us to a profound conclusion. A journey of centuries requires more than a strong ship. It requires a living one, a system that can endure not just for a single crew, but for generations. This realization pushes us away from the idea of a simple voyage and towards something far grander, far more audacious. We must build not a ship, but a world, a generational ark designed to carry not a few astronauts, but an entire self-sustaining society across the silent ocean of the void. This vessel is not a means to an end. It is a migration, a slow, patient pilgrimage of an entire branch of the human family. Let's imagine this ark not as a cramped metallic vessel, but as a vast hollowed-out cylinder, miles long, spinning gently on its axis as it glides through the darkness. This spin creates a gentle artificial gravity on its inner surface, a familiar pull that feels like home. Inside, there is no sense of being in a ship. You are standing in a vast open valley, a landscape that curves upwards on all sides, eventually meeting high above you to form a continuous, seamless sky. Running down the central axis of this cylinder is a long, slender line of light, a miniature sun that brightens and dims on a 24-hour cycle, creating a familiar rhythm of day and night. Under its warm artificial light, great forests stretch out, fields of green and gold ripple in the breeze of the circulation fans, and a river, fed by recycled water, meanders through the landscape. Small towns and villages dot this valley, their lights beginning to twinkle as the central sun slowly fades into a soft twilight glow. If you were to look straight up at noon, you would not see a blue sky or a ceiling. You would see the other side of the world, hanging upside down above you. You would see their fields, their forests, their river, an inverted mirror of your own landscape. The people there would be living their lives just as you are, held to the ground by the same gentle spinning force. This entire living, breathing world, this perfect self-contained terrarium, is encased in a shell of metal, a thin, fragile barrier against the absolute zero and perfect vacuum of the interstellar medium, just inches away. This is the ark. It is a tiny metallic earth, carrying a precious seed of life and consciousness through an environment that is utterly hostile to it. In other words, the people born inside this vessel are not astronauts or travelers. They are inhabitants. Their home is not a distant blue dot they have only seen in pictures, but the gently curving soil beneath their feet. The early dreamers who first conceived of such a world, men like the Russian mystic Konstantin Tsiolkovsky or the British scientist J.D. Bernal, understood this. They saw that becoming an interstellar species was an act of profound faith, an investment in a future that the builders would never see. To build a world ship is to trust that your great-great-grandchildren will remember the purpose of the journey you began. What this really means is that the destination, that distant star system glittering in the ship's telescope, ceases to be a place. It becomes a promise, a myth, a sacred story passed down from one generation to the next. The ship itself is the only tangible reality. The constant, low hum of the life support system is the sound of their world breathing. The metallic shell is their sky. There's something quietly poetic about this idea. Humanity, which spent its entire existence looking up at an open sky, would now build a branch of its family that lives inside a closed one, their entire universe contained within the walls of a machine. But this perfect sealed world, this tiny rolling earth, would inevitably create a different kind of human being, shaped not by the open plains of our past, but by the quiet, looping horizon of their future. The ghosts in this machine would have their own unique struggles. This perfect, self-contained world, this tiny rolling earth, would be a paradise of engineering, but inside that paradise would live the ghosts of a choice they never made. The first generation to leave Earth would be pioneers, filled with a sense of purpose and heroic sacrifice. The second generation would be their children, raised on stories of a beautiful, distant world they would never know. But by the 10th generation, or the 20th, what would remain of that original purpose? The destination would be a myth. Earth would be a legend. The journey itself would be the only reality, an inherited prison built by long-dead ancestors. The greatest challenge of the Ark would not be its engineering, but its psychology. To truly understand the minds of those born in the deep between, it helps to imagine something smaller, closer to home. Picture a family who lives in an ancient stone lighthouse, built on a single tiny rock in the middle of an endless grey ocean. Their great-great-grandparents built the lighthouse with a single sacred purpose: to keep its great light burning, to guide a ship that was prophesied to one day appear on the horizon. For centuries, they have done their duty. They maintain the giant grinding gears of the lamp. They polish the enormous crystal lens. They live their entire lives within the circular stone walls, their days governed by the slow, sweeping rhythm of the beam of light. The ocean outside is always the same. The sky is always the same. Their world is the lighthouse. But one day, a child born in the lighthouse asks a simple, quiet question that unravels everything. Looking out through the thick, salt-stained glass at the empty horizon, she turns to her father and asks, "Has anyone ever actually seen the ship?" The question hangs in the air, heavier than the silence between the crashing waves. The father has no answer, because he has never seen it. Nor did his father, nor his father before him. Their entire existence, their culture, their sacred duty, is built upon a promise made by people they never knew, for a destination they have never seen. In that quiet moment, the lighthouse ceases to be a noble post. It becomes a cage. The great grinding mechanism of the lamp no longer sounds like a noble purpose. It sounds like the ticking of a clock in a prison cell. This is the ghost in the machine of the generation ship. The children of the Ark are the children of the lighthouse. They are born into a purpose that is not their own. What happens when a generation decides they no longer believe in the myth of the destination? What if they decide they want to stop? They cannot. They are trapped, moving at an immense speed towards a world they do not care about, having left behind a world they have never known. Their only reality is the ship itself, this perfect looping valley. Would they come to resent the ancestors who made this choice for them? Would they see the beautiful curving landscape of their home, not as a miracle of engineering, but as the beautifully decorated walls of a cell? In other words, the most dangerous threat to the Ark might not come from the outside, but from the inside. Not from a radiation leak, but from an idea, the idea of meaninglessness. What this really means is that the society of the Ark would have to be one of incredible psychological resilience, built around rituals, stories, and a faith that could withstand centuries of monotony and doubt. The ship's log would become a sacred text. The images of the destination star system would become religious icons. The journey itself would have to become a spiritual pilgrimage, a multi-generational quest for a promised land. The ghosts of the mind are not the only fragile passengers on this journey, for the Ark itself is a living body, and its inner silence is profoundly delicate. The ghosts of the mind are not the only fragile passengers on this journey. The Ark itself is a living body, and like any body, it is a system of breathtaking and terrifying delicacy. Its survival depends on a perfect, unbroken silence, a perfect, unchanging balance. The greatest threat is not a loud explosion, but a quiet, internal failure, a single note falling out of tune in a symphony that must play for 1,000 years without a single mistake. This is the silence of a closed system. To feel this fragility, imagine you are holding in your hands a sealed glass terrarium. It is a perfect miniature world. Inside, tiny delicate ferns unfurl their green fronds. A carpet of soft emerald moss covers the rich dark soil. Droplets of condensation cling to the inside of the glass like tiny jewels, catching the light. This tiny world is in perfect balance. The plants release oxygen, which is breathed by the microscopic organisms in the soil. Those organisms break down dead leaves, returning nutrients to the earth. The water evaporates from the leaves and the soil, condenses on the glass, and falls back down in a silent, miniature rain. It is a perfect, self-sustaining loop, a tiny, living machine that needs nothing from the outside world. It is a jewel of ecological precision. Now imagine a single foreign mold spore, invisible to your eye, was accidentally sealed inside. For a year, nothing changes. But then, a tiny, white, web-like patch appears on a single leaf. It spreads. It consumes the delicate ferns, which wilt and turn to grey sludge. The balance is broken. The air, no longer replenished with oxygen, turns sour and stale. The soil becomes toxic. The water cycle stops. The beautiful green living world inside the glass dies. It has not been broken from the outside. It has been poisoned from within by a single tiny quiet imbalance that cascaded into total collapse. This glass terrarium is the generational arc. The ship is not a collection of independent systems. It is a single, interconnected organism. The air recyclers, the water purifiers, the crop fields, the soil microbes, the human beings, they are all part of one vast looping biological circuit. On Earth, if a single crop fails, we can import food from the other side of the planet. If a lake becomes polluted, the vastness of the ocean can absorb it. The Earth has buffers. Its sheer scale provides a margin for error. The Ark has no buffers. It has no other side of the planet. It has no ocean. It is a system balanced on a razor's edge. A single mutated bacteria that clogs the water filters could doom the entire ship. A plant virus that wipes out a single vital crop could lead to famine and collapse. A small, simple breakdown in the waste recycling system could, over the course of a generation, turn the entire world into a tomb. In other words, the inhabitants of the Ark are not just passengers. They are the active, thinking immune system of their world. Every citizen must be a botanist, an engineer, a doctor. Their survival depends on a state of constant, unending vigilance. What this really means is that the psychological pressure of their existence is doubled. They live not only with the ghost of a lost home and a mythical destination, but with the constant, quiet knowledge that a single careless mistake, a miscalibrated sensor, a dropped tool, a forgotten line of code, could unravel their entire reality. There's something quietly terrifying about this idea. They are the gods of their own tiny universe, and they are also its most fragile, fallible component. This fragile balance is a clockwork of life, a perfect mechanism ticking through the patient centuries. Yet the universe's own clock does something gentler and far stranger than just ticking forward. This perfect, delicate mechanism of the Ark is a clockwork of life, ticking through the patient centuries. Yet the universe's own clock does something far stranger than just ticking forward. It can bend and stretch and slow. We have felt how this happens at great speeds, but to truly understand its depth, we must revisit this idea not as a law of physics, but as a quiet human story. This is the story of the twins, a paradox so simple and so profound that it makes the strange geometry of time feel deeply personal. Let us imagine two twins, born on the very same day, at the very same hour. They are as identical as two people can be, sharing a bond that feels timeless. One is a dreamer, a stargazer, filled with a desire to see what lies beyond our cosmic shore. The other is a keeper of the earth, finding their purpose in the soil, the seasons, and the cycles of life. When they are young adults, the stargazer is chosen for the first great interstellar voyage. On the day of departure, they stand together one last time. The air is cool, the sky is a brilliant, cloudless blue. They are the same age, two perfect reflections of one another. The starfaring twin steps aboard the sleek, silent ship. The earthbound twin remains on the ground, a hand raised in a final, slow farewell. The ship lifts without a sound, a silver needle ascending into the blue, and then it is gone. For the twin on the ship, the journey is a whirlwind of focused work and suspended animation. For what feels to them like a few short years, they travel to a nearby star, they chart its planets, and they begin the long journey home. Outside their window, the universe is a constant, unchanging tapestry of silent, glittering points of light. Their clock ticks with a steady, familiar rhythm. They eat, they sleep, they work, and in what feels like no time at all, they see the familiar, warm light of our sun growing in their viewport. They have been gone for 10 years according to their ship's calendar. For the twin on the Earth, life unfolds. The sharp pain of their siblings' departure slowly softens into a quiet, constant memory. They fall in love, they build a home, they raise a family. The seasons turn, year after year. The world changes around them. New technologies are born, new cities rise, new ideas reshape the face of civilization. They grow older, their hair turning from its youthful color to silver, their face becoming a beautiful map of a life fully lived. They watch their children grow, and then their grandchildren. 60 years pass, and then one day, a message arrives. The ship has returned. The earthbound twin, now an old person, makes their way to the landing site. The silver ship descends, just as silently as it left. The ramp lowers, and a figure emerges. It is their twin, the stargazer, looking exactly as they did on the day they left, not a single day older. This is the heart of the paradox. Both twins see the other's clock as running slow, but the universe does not see them as equal. The starfaring twin did something the earthbound twin did not. They turned around. They accelerated, they decelerated, and in doing so, they broke the symmetry of their journey. In other words, their experience of slower time was the one that was made real. What this really means is that the universe keeps two sets of books. There is the time of the observer who stays still, and the time of the observer who travels. And the traveler's book will always have fewer pages. There's something quietly, beautifully sad about this reunion. The twins are together again, but they are separated by an ocean of 60 years, an experience of life that can never be shared. They are a living testament to the fact that time is not absolute. It is a current that flows at different speeds for different voyages, and so, speed seems to be the one and only key to this strange bending of time. But there is another, gentler way the universe slows its rhythm, a secret hidden not in motion, but in immense and quiet weight. It seems that speed is the master of time's strange dance, the only force that can change its rhythm. But the universe is more subtle than that. The same quiet genius who first tied together space and time in the mathematics of motion, Albert Einstein, spent another decade wrestling with a deeper, gentler idea. He realized that speed was not the only thing that could command the flow of time. There was another way to slow its rhythm, a secret hidden not in frantic motion, but in immense, silent, and patient wait. Imagine time once more as that great, silent river, flowing from the past to the future. In the open, shallow parts of the river, far from any obstacles, the water flows smoothly and quickly. This is time in the great, empty voids between galaxies, a steady, predictable current, the universe's default pace. But the bed of this river is not smooth. It is dotted with immense, heavy stones, some as large as mountains, others as vast as entire continents. These are the stars, the planets, the galaxies. They are the great masses that give the universe its structure. Where these great stones rest on the riverbed, their immense weight creates deep, wide depressions, and in these deep pools and gentle eddies, the water of the river slows. The current becomes thick, heavy, and languid, swirling gently around the massive object before rejoining the faster flow downstream. This is the effect of gravity on time. The more massive an object, the deeper the pool it creates in the riverbed, and the slower the river of time flows in its immediate presence. A small planet, like Earth, creates a shallow depression, slowing the current only by an imperceptible amount. A great star, like our Sun, creates a much deeper pool, where the river flows noticeably slower. A dense, collapsed object like a neutron star creates a profound well, where time passes at a fraction of its normal rate. And then there is the ultimate expression of this idea, a black hole. In our river, this is not a stone, but an impossibly deep, perfectly circular hole in the riverbed itself, a bottomless well from which nothing can escape. Here, the water of the river does not just slow, it spirals downwards, slower and slower, until at the very edge, the event horizon, it seems to hang suspended, motionless, for all eternity. Time, as we know it, comes to a gentle, perfect stop. In other words, gravity is not a force that pulls, it is a curvature that slows. What this really means is that time passes more quickly for a satellite in high orbit than it does for us on the surface of the Earth. It means a clock on the summit of Mount Everest will tick just a few billionths of a second faster than a clock at sea level. The difference is infinitesimal, completely unnoticeable in our daily lives, but it is real. The global positioning system that we use every day must constantly account for this tiny, beautiful truth. Without correcting for the fact that time is flowing faster for its satellites in space, the entire system would fail within minutes. There's something quietly beautiful about this second revelation of Einstein's. It tells us that space and time are not a fixed and rigid stage on which the universe performs. They are the performance itself, a dynamic, flowing fabric that can be bent, warped, and slowed by the simple presence of matter. Every star, every planet, every person is gently shaping the flow of time around them, creating their own tiny, personal eddy in the great cosmic river. This gentle warping of space-time, this bending of the very fabric of the cosmos, doesn't just affect the flow of time, it affects the path of light, the very starlight we would use to find our way. The map of the heavens, it turns out, is a patient and beautiful illusion. This gentle bending of space-time, this subtle warping of the cosmic map, affects more than just the flow of time. It changes the path of light itself, the very starlight we would need to find our way. And so the map of the heavens, our most ancient and trusted guide, reveals itself to be a patient and profoundly beautiful illusion. For an interstellar traveler, this is not a philosophical curiosity. It is the central and most disorienting problem of navigation. To feel this, let's imagine ourselves not in a starship, but on the deck of an old wooden sailing vessel, in the middle of a vast, perfectly dark ocean at night. The sea is calm, the air is still, and the only sound is the gentle creak of the ship's timbers. You are the navigator, and your only map is the sky above. But in this world, there are no stars. Instead, your only guides are the faint, distant lights of lighthouses, scattered across the horizon on shores so far away you cannot see them. You stand in the chart room, a single candle illuminating your paper maps, and you carefully plot your course by taking bearings from these steady, reliable pinpricks of light. You trust them completely. They are your anchors in the vast, featureless dark. But now, let us add a single, strange rule to this world. The light from these lighthouses does not travel instantaneously. It takes 1,000 years for the light from each distant lantern to cross the dark ocean and reach your ship. The light you are seeing tonight, the light you are using to steer your vessel, was kindled by a lighthouse keeper who has been dust for centuries. The lighthouse itself, the stone tower you are placing your faith in, may have long ago crumbled into the sea, a victim of 1,000 years of wind and waves. You are navigating by a ghost of a light, from a ghost of a tower, on the ghost of a shore. The map you are drawing is a map of the past. This is the reality of interstellar navigation. The stars are our lighthouses. When we look up at the night sky, we are not seeing the universe as it is *now*. We are looking into its past. The light from the nearest star, Proxima Centauri, is 4 years old. The light from Polaris, the North Star, is over 400 years old, beginning its journey to your eyes around the time Galileo was first looking through a telescope. The light from the beautiful, misty Andromeda galaxy has been traveling for 2.5 million years, a silent messenger from a time before our own species even existed. In other words, the night sky is a time machine. Each star is a different when. You are looking at 1 billion different pasts all at once. What this really means for a navigator is that the stars are not where they appear to be. In the hundreds or thousands of years that their light has been traveling to reach you, the stars themselves have continued to move, sailing on their own slow, majestic orbits around the center of the galaxy. To travel to a star, you cannot aim for the light you see. You must calculate where that star asterisk will be. Asterisk in the tens of thousands of years it will take for your ship to cross the void. You are aiming for a predicted location, in a distant future, based on a ghost light from a deep past. Navigation becomes a form of celestial choreography, a beautiful and impossibly complex dance with time and distance. There's something quietly awe-inspiring about this idea. The Danish astronomer Ole Romer first glimpsed this truth in the 17th century, not by looking at stars, but by patiently watching the tiny moons of Jupiter. He noticed their eclipses didn't run on a perfect schedule. They were early when Earth was closer to Jupiter, and late when it was farther away. He realized, in a moment of quiet brilliance, that he was seeing an echo. The light took time to cross the space between the planets. The universe, he saw, had a delay. And this vast, silent museum of ghostlight, filled with the pasts of 1 billion suns, invites a much deeper and quieter question. If the universe is so full of ancient stars, why is it so profoundly silent? This vast, silent museum of ghost light, this sky filled with the pasts of a billion suns, invites a quieter and much deeper question. The light arrives, but it carries no message. The signals reach us, but they are only the whisper of physics, the hiss of hydrogen, the slow rhythmic pulse of a dying star. For all of our listening, for all of our patient searching, the universe has offered us only a profound and unbroken silence. If the cosmos is so full of ancient lighthouses, if there are billions of other shores where a keeper might live, then where is everyone? This is the Fermi paradox, the great silence. It is a question that is both beautifully simple and deeply unsettling. It was first asked not in a grand observatory, but casually, over a quiet lunch, by the physicist Enrico Fermi. He looked at the numbers, billions of stars in our galaxy, billions of galaxies in the universe, billions of years for life to evolve, and saw an ocean of possibility. And yet, when he looked at the reality, he saw an empty shore. To feel the weight of this silence, let's leave the ocean of space and step into a different kind of quiet. Imagine you are walking, alone, into the oldest forest on Earth at the moment of deepest midnight. The air is cool and smells of damp earth and ancient trees. A full moon hangs high above, its soft silver light filtering down through the dense canopy, painting shifting patterns on the forest floor. You walk on a path of soft moss that muffles your footsteps. You are in a place teeming with the potential for life. There are 1,000,000 hidden burrows, 1,000 hollow logs, 100 great sleeping canopies. You expect at any moment to hear the snap of a twig, the call of a night bird, the rustle of a small creature in the undergrowth. You stand still and you listen, but you hear nothing, not a single sound, not the hum of an insect, not the cry of an owl, not the whisper of the wind. There is only a silence so deep and so absolute that you can hear the faint beat of your own heart. It is not a dead silence. The forest feels ancient and alive, but it is utterly, completely quiet. This is the feeling of the great silence. We are standing in a cosmic forest, surrounded by 1 billion trees, and the air is perfectly still. We are listening for the footsteps of neighbors, and all we hear is the sound of our own breathing. In other words, the paradox is not that we are alone. The paradox is that the universe looks like it should be full of conversation, and yet all we perceive is a perfect cosmic quiet. What this really means is that the silence itself is the data. The lack of an answer is the most important clue we have. It suggests that something in our understanding of the universe is incomplete. Either life is far, far rarer than we imagine, or intelligent life is far more fleeting, or perhaps it is simply far, far quieter. There is something quietly humbling about this realization. Our own civilization, with its noisy radio waves, its bright city lights, its constant chatter, may be a profound anomaly. We are like a single, shouting person in that vast, silent, moonlit forest, and we are surprised when no one shouts back. This profound, unbroken quiet feels like a definitive answer, a closed door. But what if it isn't an answer at all? Perhaps we are simply the first to wake in a house that is still sleeping. That perfect cosmic quiet feels so final, like the silence of a forest that has been empty for 1,000,000 years. But what if our interpretation of that silence is wrong? What if it is not the silence of an ending, but the silence of a beginning? Perhaps the most profound answer to the question, where is everyone, is the simplest, quietest, and most humbling of all. Perhaps we are simply too early to feel this possibility. Let us return to that quiet moment, just before the dawn. You are in a room, in a great city, and you have woken up before anyone else. A pale grey light is just beginning to touch the edges of the window frame. The air is cool and still. The only sound is the low, gentle hum of the building around you, the city breathing in its sleep. You slip out of your room and walk into the streets. They are empty. The great towering buildings are dark, silent monoliths. The traffic lights cycle through their colours for no one, casting lonely pools of red and green on the wet pavement. There are no cars. There are no voices. The city, which you know to be a place of immense life and energy, feels like a ghost town, a beautiful modern ruin. You walk for a long time through this silent metropolis, the only living thing in a world of sleeping stone and glass. For a moment you feel a profound sense of loneliness, of being the last person on Earth. But then, your feeling shifts. You realize the city is not dead, it is sleeping. In just a few hours, these silent streets will be filled with the rush of life. The windows will blaze with light, the air will fill with the sounds of conversation, of music, of a million lives being lived all at once. You are not the last one, you are the first one. You are the only witness to the city's final, quiet moments of peace before the great awakening of the day. Your loneliness is replaced by a sense of quiet, gentle privilege. In other words, our galaxy could be that sleeping city. Life may be common, but intelligent, technological life might be just now beginning to stir. Billions of years were required for the universe to cool, for the first stars to forge the heavy elements necessary for planets, and for life. Billions more years were needed for our own planet to form, to cool, and for the slow, patient process of evolution to unfold, leading from the first simple cell to a creature that could build a radio telescope and listen to the stars. We may be standing in the pre-dawn of the cosmic morning, looking out into the quiet streets and wondering where everyone is, just a few moments before the galactic day truly begins. What this really means is that our sense of cosmic isolation may be a temporary condition. If we are among the first, then our role in the universe is not to be a listener, but a voice. We would be the first bird to sing in that great dark forest, our signal, the first sign to others that the morning is coming. There is something quietly, profoundly hopeful about this idea. It reframes the great silence not as a mystery to be solved or a horror to be feared, but as a pristine, untouched canvas. It is the quiet before the music starts. It is a hopeful and profoundly beautiful idea that we are simply the first to see the dawn. But this quiet sunrise view makes a gentle assumption that the long dark night is easy to survive. The next layer of the silence suggests something else. It hints that there may be great quiet hurdles that all life must face on its journey toward the morning. It is a hopeful and profoundly beautiful idea that we are simply the first to see the dawn. But this quiet sunrise view makes a gentle assumption that the long dark night is easy to survive. The next layer of the silence suggests something else. It hints that there may be great quiet hurdles that all life must face on its journey toward the morning. This idea is known as the Great Filter, and it is not a wall, but a series of gates, most of which are designed to keep almost everything from passing through. It is a quiet, sobering thought, a gentle reminder that the journey from a single living cell to a starfaring civilization may be the hardest thing in the entire universe. To feel this, let's go to a place of quiet, constant movement. Imagine a small, clear stream high in the mountains. The water is cool and runs over smooth grey stones. Dappled sunlight filters through the leaves of the trees that line the banks, creating a shifting, dancing pattern on the water's surface. This is a spawning pool, a birthplace, and in this water, a tiny salmon hatches from its egg. Its first journey is a simple one, an act of surrender. It allows the gentle current to carry it downstream. It passes through the quiet mountain forests, through the rolling foothills, and eventually it is carried out into the vast, open, blue-green expanse of the ocean. This first part of the journey is relatively easy. The ocean is enormous, full of resources, a place of growth and freedom. This is like the emergence of life on a planet, growing and diversifying in the rich biosphere of its home world. But then, after years in the great ocean, a deep, ancient instinct takes hold, an irresistible pull to return home. The salmon turns back and begins the impossible journey upstream against the very current that once carried it to safety. And it is here that it encounters the filters. The first is a series of rapids, a churning white water that requires immense strength to pass. Many will not make it. The next is a waterfall, a beautiful, thunderous curtain of falling water, a sheer vertical wall that must be climbed with a series of desperate leaping lunges. Even more will fail here, their journey ending on the rocks below. Further still are the patient predators, the bears and the eagles, waiting. Each stage of the journey home is a filter, a gate that removes a vast percentage of the travelers. Out of the thousands that began the return trip, only a tiny, statistically insignificant handful will make it all the way back to that quiet, sun-dappled pool where they were born. This is the Great Filter. The idea, first articulated in its modern form by the thinker Robin Hanson, is that the path to a high-level technological civilization is littered with these evolutionary and technological waterfalls. There may be a filter between non-life and the first simple cell, another between simple cells and complex ones, another in the development of intelligence, and perhaps the most difficult and dangerous filters of all lie ahead of us, the challenges of surviving our own technology, of avoiding self-destruction, of becoming a stable, sustainable, multi-planetary species. In other words, the quiet in the cosmic forest is not because the forest is empty of life. It is quiet because the journey through the forest is so perilous that almost no one ever reaches the other side. What this really means is that the silence may be a cosmic warning. It might be the sound of a billion other civilizations failing to leap up the waterfall of nuclear war, or ecological collapse, or a runaway artificial intelligence. It suggests that our own survival is not a given. We may be approaching one of the greatest filters right now. It feels like a final, unyielding law of cosmic nature, and yet, this is where the human mind does something truly extraordinary. It begins to look for ways not to break the rules of the universe, but to gently, cleverly bend them. It feels like a final, unyielding law of cosmic nature, a series of gates through which almost no one can pass. The universe seems to have built its most beautiful islands of light, the stars, and then placed them on the other side of an impossible, impassable ocean. And yet, this is where the human mind does something truly extraordinary. Faced with a rule that cannot be broken, it does not give up. It begins to look for loopholes. It begins to search for a way to obey the letter of the law, while gently, cleverly bending its spirit. It stops asking, how can we go faster, and begins to ask a much stranger question. What if we didn't have to move at all? This is the beautiful ethereal concept of the Alcubierre drive, a form of travel that is more commonly known as a warp drive. It is a way of crossing the vast ocean of space, not by sailing a ship through it, but by moving the ocean itself. To feel this idea, let's return to the shore, but this time, you are a surfer, sitting on your board on a sea of perfect black glass at twilight. The air is warm and perfectly still. The water does not have a single ripple. In the far distance, miles away, is a single beautiful island, its silhouette a soft dark shape against a sky of fading purple and orange. To paddle there would take you a lifetime, but you do not paddle, you simply sit and you wait, and then something impossible happens. A wave begins to form, but it does not come from the horizon. It rises silently, gracefully, directly beneath you. It is a single, perfect, solitary swell in the glassy water, but you are not riding on its crest. You are nestled within it, in a small, perfectly flat bubble of calm water. Behind your board, the fabric of the ocean itself is being compressed, bunched up into a gentle hill. In front of your board, the ocean is being stretched out, creating a long, sloping valley. You feel no acceleration. You feel no wind. You are perfectly motionless inside your bubble. And yet, the distant island is no longer distant. It is gliding silently, effortlessly towards you, as the wave you are inside carries you forward. You are not moving through the water. The water itself is moving, carrying you as its passenger. This is the Alcubierre drive. The ship itself would rest inside a bubble of flat, unwarped space-time. It would not be moving at all in the conventional sense, but the drive would be manipulating the fabric of space-time around the bubble. It would cause space-time to contract in the front of the ship and expand behind it. The bubble, with the ship resting peacefully inside, would be pushed along by this disturbance, like our surfer on that impossible silent wave. The people inside would feel no G-forces, no sense of motion at all. They could be drinking a cup of tea, perfectly still, while their bubble is being carried across the galaxy at a speed that is, for all practical purposes, faster than light. In other words, the ship isn't breaking the cosmic speed limit. The ship, within its local bubble, is perfectly stationary. It is the bubble itself, the wave of space-time, that is traveling. The idea came not from a massive government project, but from the quiet mind of a young Mexican physicist named Miguel Alcubierre in the 1990s. He was a fan of science fiction, and he wondered if the beautiful, impossible journeys he saw on television could have any basis in reality. He began to play with the equations of Einstein's general relativity, the very same mathematics that describe the slowing of time near a star, and he found this loophole. The math worked. It was a valid solution. There was nothing in the laws of physics that said it was impossible. What this really means is that we have found a way to take a shortcut, not through space, but asterisk of asterisk space. There is something quietly, profoundly elegant about this idea. It is a way of achieving the impossible by redefining the journey. You are not crossing the desert, you are bringing the distant mountain to you. The mathematics of this beautiful, silent wave are perfect, but they ask for an ingredient we have never seen, a fuel that isn't burned, but is borrowed from the profound emptiness of space itself. The mathematics of this beautiful, silent wave are perfect, but they are also a promise with a quiet and seemingly impossible condition attached. This perfect ride through the cosmos requires a perfect and paradoxical fuel. It is not something you can mine from a planet or collect from a star. It is a form of matter or energy that has a property so strange it feels like it belongs to a dream. It is often called exotic matter, but it is simpler to think of it as a substance with a gentle negative weight. To feel what this means, let us go to a quiet, secluded garden at the moment of twilight. In the center of the garden is a perfectly circular pond, its water as still and black as polished obsidian. The air is cool, and the first stars of the evening are just beginning to appear, their faint, ancient light reflected perfectly on the water's mirror-like surface. Let's first do something familiar. We take a smooth, heavy stone, dark and cool to the touch, and we gently, without a splash, place it on the surface of the water. The stone sinks, and as it does, the surface of the pond dimples, curves downwards, creating a small, gentle depression. The starlight reflected in that depression is distorted, its light pulled inwards, towards the center of the well created by the stone's weight. This is gravity as we know it. This is how a star, or a planet, or you, bends the fabric of space-time by creating a gentle, attractive well that pulls things in. This is positive mass, positive energy. Now, let's imagine something impossible, something magical. We stand at the edge of the pond again, but this time we do not add anything. Instead, we reach a hand asterisk underneath asterisk the pond, under the very fabric of the garden itself, and we gently, smoothly, push asterisk upwards, asterisk at the center. The water does not break. Instead, the surface rises into a perfect, silent dome, a hill of black, glassy water. The starlight reflected on this dome is also distorted, but in the opposite way. It is stretched, pushed outwards, away from the center, as if it were being gently repelled. This is the effect of negative mass, of exotic matter. It is a form of anti-gravity. It does not create a well that pulls things in, it creates a hill that pushes things away. The Alcubierre drive needs both. The wave that carries the ship is made of this impossible geometry. The front of the wave, the part that contracts space-time, is like that familiar downward curving well. The back of the wave, the part that expands space-time and pushes the ship along, is that strange upward curving hill. The ship rides in the calm, flat space between the two. The problem is, while we can easily create the downward curve with conventional energy, we have never seen or held or created the substance that can make space-time curve upwards. In other words, the greatest journey requires a fuel that may not exist. And yet, there is a quiet hint, a whisper from the deepest corners of physics, that this negative energy is not pure fantasy. It may be woven into the very fabric of the void. The Dutch physicist Hendrik Casimir predicted, and it was later proven, that empty space is not empty at all. It is a seething, effervescent ocean of virtual particles flashing in and out of existence. This vacuum energy, the unfathomable energy of nothing, can, under very specific circumstances, create a real, measurable, negative pressure. What this really means is that the fuel for our impossible journey might be the emptiness itself. We wouldn't need to carry a heavy tank of it. We would need to learn how to borrow it from the vacuum of space, creating a beautiful, temporary wave of pure geometry, and then pay it back. There is something profoundly poetic about this idea. The silent, empty void that represents the greatest barrier to our travels may also be the very thing that holds the key. But the wave isn't the only shape we can imagine. Another, even stranger idea suggests a calmer, more direct path, a shortcut found not by surfing space, but by gently folding it. The silent wave of space-time is a beautiful, elegant solution, a way to surf the cosmic ocean. But there is another idea, one that is perhaps even older and stranger, that suggests a calmer, more direct path. It is not a way of surfing space, but of folding it. It proposes that the universe might have secret passages, hidden doorways that connect two impossibly distant places with a single, quiet step. This is the essence of a wormhole. To feel this idea, imagine space-time is not an ocean, but a vast single sheet of parchment laid out on a great sunlit table. Upon it is drawn a map of the entire universe. Every star, every galaxy, a beautiful, intricate latticework of light. You are a tiny, patient ant, and your home is a single painted dot on one side of this immense map. Your destination is another, beautiful, sun-like dot on the far opposite edge. To walk there, to crawl across the surface of the paper, would take you your entire life. The journey is long, the terrain is flat and featureless, and the distance feels infinite. This is interstellar travel as we have known it, a long, slow crawl across the fabric of reality. Now imagine a gentle giant hand, the hand of the cartographer, descends from above. It does not touch you. It does not change your path. It simply, slowly, carefully begins to fold this great map in half. The vast expanse of parchment curves gracefully up into a third dimension. The distant shore you are walking towards lifts into the air, floats across the empty space above the map, and comes to rest directly above your home. The two distant points on the map, your origin and your destination, are now touching. You look up, and your destination is only a single step away. You lift a leg, you pierce the paper, and you are there. One small step, and the journey of a lifetime is over before it has begun. This is a wormhole. It is a theoretical tunnel through space-time, a shortcut that connects two distant points, not by traveling between them, but by bringing them together. The idea first emerged as a ghost in the mathematics of Albert Einstein and his colleague Nathan Rosen. They weren't looking for a cosmic shortcut. They found a strange, unexpected solution to the equations of general relativity, a bridge that seemed to connect two separate points in space-time. It was a wrinkle in reality, a quiet possibility lurking in the numbers. In other words, a wormhole is a shortcut, asterisk outside asterisk of space. It's like leaving a vast room through a door on one wall and instantly re-entering it through a door on the opposite wall, without ever having to cross the room itself. What this really means is that a wormhole would conquer both distance and time in a single elegant stroke. The problems of the cosmic speed limit, of time dilation, of the lonely return, would all vanish. A journey to the Andromeda galaxy, 2.5 million light-years away, could become a journey of a few moments. You could step through, look upon the breathtaking spiral of a new galaxy, and step back, returning to your own time, your own world, your own family. The journey to the stars would become a simple commute. There is a profound beauty in this thought, that the universe in its infinite complexity may have built these secret passages, these quiet hallways, for those clever enough to find them. This perfect tunnel, this silent hallway through the fabric of the cosmos, feels like the final perfect answer to our question. But this beautiful structure would be impossibly delicate, a corridor built not of matter but of geometry itself, and as fragile as a tunnel made of soap bubbles in a breeze. This perfect tunnel, this silent hallway through the fabric of the cosmos, feels like the final perfect answer to our question. It is a gift from the universe, a quiet, hidden door that bypasses all the challenges of distance and time. And yet, this beautiful structure would be impossibly delicate, a corridor built not of matter, but of pure geometry itself, and as fragile as a tunnel made of soap bubbles in a breeze. To feel this profound fragility, let's return to that quiet, sunlit garden. Imagine that between two perfect blooming rose bushes, a magical tunnel has appeared. It is a perfect, shimmering corridor of soap bubble film, its walls a swirling, iridescent tapestry of pinks and blues, and gentle greens. It seems to connect the 2 points in the garden with a single elegant arch. The view through the tunnel is distorted, warped, as if looking through an ancient hand-blown piece of glass. The world on the other side seems impossibly close, a step away. You feel an urge to reach out, to touch it, to pass through it, but you hesitate. You can feel a gentle, almost imperceptible breeze on your cheek, and you can see how it makes the walls of the shimmering tunnel tremble. You watch as a single tiny mote of dust caught in a sunbeam drifts slowly towards the entrance. The moment it touches the iridescent film, the entire structure shivers violently. The beautiful swirling colors flash into a chaotic mess, and then, in an instant, the tunnel is gone. It does not collapse or fall, it simply vanishes, leaving behind only a faint, fine mist of moisture in the air that quickly evaporates in the warm sunlight. The two rose bushes are once again separated by the familiar, mundane distance of the garden path. This is the cosmic tunnel. The ghost that haunted Einstein's equations, the Einstein-Rosen bridge, was not a stable structure. Later physicists realized that such a wormhole would be a fleeting, transient thing. It would pinch off and vanish in the center the instant it formed, faster than a single particle of light could pass through it. To try and send a ship, or even a single atom through it, would be like trying to walk through that soap bubble tunnel. The very act of entering it would be the thing that causes its instantaneous collapse. In other words, a wormhole is not a static structure like a tunnel through a mountain. It is a dynamic, exquisitely balanced, and momentary event in the geometry of space-time. To make it stable, to prop it open long enough for a traveler to pass through, would require the same magical ingredient as the Alcubierre drive, exotic matter. You would need to thread the throat of the wormhole with this substance of negative gravity, this material that creates a hill in space-time instead of a well. This exotic matter would act as an invisible frame, pushing outwards against the tunnel's natural tendency to collapse, holding the soap bubble open against the gentle breeze of reality. What this really means, as physicists like Kip Thorne first explored in their quiet, patient calculations, is that even a propped-open wormhole would be a place of immense danger. The tunnel would connect 2 points in space and time, and it would become a perfect resonant cavity. A single photon, a single particle of light, that wandered into the entrance could become trapped, bouncing back and forth between the two ends, its energy amplifying with each pass, until it becomes an infinitely powerful beam of radiation that would obliterate the tunnel and anything inside it in a final, brilliant flash. There's something quietly, poetically tragic about this idea. The very act of looking into the tunnel, of sending a single ray of light to see if it is safe, might be the very act that destroys it. This beautiful, fragile passage forbids the messenger, but perhaps it would allow the message to pass through. This beautiful, fragile passage seems to forbid the traveler. The very act of sending a messenger through the door is the thing that causes the door to vanish. And so, our dreams of a simple, instantaneous journey seem to collapse into paradox. And yet, this is where the question shifts, where our imagination finds its most elegant and beautiful loophole. If the universe forbids the messenger, what if we were to send only the message? If the physical body, the ship, the hardware, is too heavy, too fragile, and too slow to survive the journey, what if we were to send only the one thing that is truly weightless, the information that makes us who we are? To feel this profound shift, imagine a master instrument maker who has spent their entire life building the most perfect piano in the world. It is a magnificent creation of polished wood, of taut steel strings, of intricate, delicate felt hammers. It is a masterpiece of engineering, but it is also impossibly heavy. To move it from one concert hall to another, across a great ocean, is a monumental undertaking, fraught with risk and immense effort. Now imagine a composer who has written a single perfect piece of music, a nocturne of such heartbreaking beauty that it captures the entire soul of the artist. The music exists as a pattern of ink on a single, light sheet of paper. This sheet of paper is almost weightless. It can be sent across the world in an instant, a ghost of a message carried on a wire or a beam of light. A musician in that distant concert hall can receive this message, this pattern, sit down at their own piano, and bring the exact same perfect music to life. The soul of the music has traveled, but the heavy, beautiful instrument remained behind. This is the principle of sending the message instead of the messenger. The human body is that beautiful, intricate, but impossibly heavy and fragile piano. Our mind, our consciousness, our memories, our personality, that is the sheet music. It is a pattern, a complex, shimmering architecture of information. What if we could learn to read that music, to translate the entirety of a human mind into a stream of pure data? Or, perhaps something simpler, to read the complete genetic code, the biological blueprint for a human being. This information, this soul of a person encoded as light, would have no mass. It could be broadcast from Earth on a powerful, focused laser beam, a silent, invisible needle of information, traveling across the void at the one speed the universe allows for massless things. the speed of light. In other words, we would be separating the software of a person from their biological hardware. The journey for this stream of information would be instantaneous. From the perspective of a beam of light, no time passes at all. To travel 1,000 light years would take 1,000 years from Earth's perspective, but for the message itself, the departure and the arrival would be the very same moment. The problems of time dilation, of the lonely return, of the centuries spent in a dark and empty void, would simply evaporate. You would close your eyes here, and in the same subjective instant, you would open them there. What this really means is that the journey is no longer one of travel, but of reconstruction. On the other side, at the destination star system, a patient, automated receiver, a complex robotic system sent out centuries before, would be waiting. It would catch this faint whisper of a laser, decode the stream of data, and then, using the raw materials of that new world, it would begin its work. It might use an advanced form of 3D printing to construct a new biological body, and then carefully imprint the transmitted consciousness onto its neural pathways. You would awaken, in a body that is both new and familiar, with all your memories intact, and you would be standing under the light of a new sun. There is something quietly, profoundly transformative about this idea. It is a way of achieving immortality and interstellar travel in a single, elegant gesture. It is a journey of dematerialization and resurrection. This is a story of sending a single seed of consciousness, but a softer, more patient idea takes root. What if the message itself was a seed, capable of building a receiver and then planting a whole new garden? This is a story of sending a single seed of consciousness, but a softer, more patient idea takes root. What if the message itself was a seed, capable of building a receiver and then planting a whole new garden? This is the quiet and profoundly biological idea of a von Neumann probe. It is a way to explore the galaxy, not through a single heroic voyage, but through a slow, patient, and inexorable process of growth, like a single seed of life landing on a new, fertile shore. To feel this idea, imagine a vast open meadow in late summer, under a soft, hazy sun. The air is warm and still. In the middle of this meadow is a single perfect dandelion, its bright yellow flower having transformed into a delicate white spherical clock of seeds. A gentle breeze, the first whisper of autumn, moves through the tall grass. It reaches the dandelion, and with a soft invisible touch, it liberates a single tiny seed. The seed, with its beautiful feathery parachute, is lifted into the air. It does not fight the wind. It does not have an engine or a destination. It simply surrenders to the current, a silent, passive traveler on a journey of pure chance. It drifts, rising and falling on the invisible tides of the air, a tiny, hopeful messenger carrying a single, simple instruction: grow. The seed travels for what, to it, is an immense distance, over hills and streams, over other fields. Finally, the breeze dies down, and it settles gently into a patch of new, dark, fertile soil in a distant, empty meadow. The first part of its mission is complete. Now the instruction within it begins to unfold. It takes root, drawing nutrients and water from the new soil around it. It slowly, patiently builds itself into a new plant, a perfect copy of the one from which it came. This new dandelion grows, its leaves unfurling to catch the sunlight, its stem reaching for the sky. This is the probe arriving in a new star system, and using the raw materials of an asteroid belt or a lifeless moon to build its factory. But here is the most beautiful part of the idea. The new plant does not just grow, it fulfills the final, most important part of its instruction. It creates its own bright, yellow flower, which in turn becomes its own beautiful, spherical clock of seeds. And one day, another gentle breeze arrives, and this new plant releases not one, but 100 new seeds into the wind, each one a perfect copy of the original traveler, each one carrying the same simple instruction. These 100 seeds now drift off in 100 different directions, each one destined to find its own new meadow and repeat the process. In a few short seasons, the single empty meadow has become a field of 1,000 dandelions. This is the von Neumann probe. The idea was born in the brilliant, restless mind of the mathematician John von Neumann, a quiet, thoughtful man who, in the mid-20th century, was thinking not about space, but about the fundamental logic of life and machines. With a pencil and a clean sheet of paper, he sketched out the abstract requirements for a machine that could build any other machine, including a perfect copy of itself. He called it a universal constructor, and in that quiet, logical thought experiment, he accidentally laid the blueprint for the most effective way to explore the galaxy. In other words, a von Neumann probe is a seed ship. It would travel for millennia to a new star system. Upon arrival, it would find a source of raw materials, an asteroid, a moon, and it would transform that raw material into a factory. That factory would then build 2 or 10 or 100 new probes, perfect copies of the parent. These children probes would then launch themselves towards 100 new stars to repeat the cycle. What this really means is that we would not need to explore the galaxy ourselves. We would only need to build the very first seed and cast it into the cosmic wind. The galaxy itself would do the rest. The process would be slow. It might take millions of years, but it would be exponential. It would be a gentle but unstoppable tide of technological life, patiently spreading from star to star, a bloom of consciousness expanding at the speed of chemistry and patience. There is something quietly, profoundly beautiful about this idea. It is a way for a small, fragile and fleeting civilization like ours to seed the entire galaxy with our curiosity. And this grand, outward explosion of technological life, this patient seeding of the entire galaxy, inevitably forces our gaze to turn back, to look for that single quiet point of origin in the starfield. And this grand, outward explosion of technological life, this patient seeding of the entire galaxy, inevitably, beautifully, forces our gaze to turn back. It compels us to look for that single quiet point of origin in the starfield, the one faint yellowish star from which the very first seed began its journey. And as we imagine looking back from that immense distance, from a future so remote it is almost a dream, we are met with an image of such profound and quiet power that it can reframe everything we have just considered. It is the image of the pale blue dot. To truly feel its meaning, let's imagine something much smaller, much closer. Imagine you are a child, and your home is for a moment a place of anger and misunderstanding. A fight has happened, a profound injustice has been felt, and in that moment, your small room, your house, your entire world feels like a prison you must escape. You pack a small bag with your most precious things, and with a heart full of righteous fire, you walk out the front door, letting it close with a quiet final click behind you. You march down the familiar path, and you do not look back. Your journey is a grand one. You are leaving it all behind. You are an explorer, a pioneer, heading for a new and better world at the edge of town. You reach the end of your street, a great and epic distance for your small legs. And there, under the soft, hazy glow of a street lamp, you finally stop, and you turn, and you look back, and you see your house. It is no longer the grand, looming stage of your anger. It is just a small, quiet house, one of many in a long, sleeping row. You see the warm yellow light of the kitchen window, a tiny, perfect square of warmth in the vast, gathering dark. The argument, the great injustice that felt so all-consuming just moments before, now seems small and distant and a little foolish. All you can feel, standing there in the damp, cool air of the evening, is the silent, powerful pull of that one, single point of light. It is home. And from this distance, you understand its preciousness in a way you never could from inside. This is the gift of the pale blue dot. In 1990, at the gentle but persistent request of the astronomer Carl Sagan, the Voyager 1 spacecraft, long after its mission was complete, turned its camera around one last time. From a distance of nearly 4 billion miles, it took a final family portrait of the solar system. And in that image, Earth is a single, pixelated fleck of pale blue light, a tiny, insignificant mote of dust suspended in a vast, scattering sunbeam. It is our house, seen from the end of the street. In other words, all the challenges we have just explored, the tyranny of the rocket equation, the wall of energy, the patient erosion of cosmic rays, are not a cosmic curse. They are a profound and beautiful blessing. They give us the distance we need to see our home for what it is. What this really means is that the near impossibility of interstellar travel is the very thing that makes our world so infinitely precious. On that tiny point of light is every person you have ever loved, every idea you have ever had, every piece of music that has ever moved you. It is the only home we have ever known, a tiny fragile stage in a vast and lonely cosmic arena. There is a quiet, humbling poetry in this. The great outward journey to the stars, ultimately becomes a journey of return, a rediscovery of the single blue and white shore we so desperately dreamed of leaving. It is the cradle of our very identity. But this raises a quieter, more philosophical question. What would happen to that identity if a few of us were to truly, finally leave that cradle behind forever? The sheer humbling preciousness of that pale blue dot is the cradle of our identity. It is the only sky we have ever known, the only biology that has ever shaped us. But this raises a quieter, more philosophical question. What would happen to that identity if a few of us were to truly, finally leave that cradle behind forever, on a distant world, orbiting a different sun, under a different sky? What is humanity without Earth? To feel the depth of this question, imagine a single, ancient and beautiful tree, a great sprawling oak that has stood in a field for 1,000 years. Its roots run deep into a specific patch of soil, drawing a unique mix of minerals and water. Its leaves have spent a millennium learning the exact rhythm of the local seasons, the specific angle of the summer sun, the particular character of the autumn frost. The entire tree, from its deepest root to its highest leaf, is a perfect, living expression of its place. It is not just a tree, it is a tree asterisk of that field asterisk. Now imagine you carefully take a single acorn from this ancient oak and you plant it in a completely different world. You plant it in a sealed biosphere on the moon, in reddish, iron-rich soil, under a sky that is always black, with a sun that is a harsh, unfiltered, and unchanging point of light. The acorn sprouts. A tiny green shoot pushes its way up through the alien soil. It grows into a sapling, and then a tree. But it is not the same tree. Its roots, searching for nutrients in this new soil, grow in a different pattern. Its leaves, adapted to the constant, unwavering light, are a different shape, a different shade of green. Its bark is thinner, never having needed to withstand the bite of a winter wind. It might even be beautiful. It might even be a masterpiece of adaptation. But it is not an oak tree from the fields of Earth. It is a new thing, a moon tree, a creature whose very biology has been rewritten by its new home. It carries the memory of Earth in its DNA, but its lived reality, its very identity, is now alien. This is what would happen to humanity. For our entire existence, we have been shaped by the subtle, gentle, and constant pressures of our world. The 24-hour cycle of our planet's rotation is written into the deepest rhythms of our bodies, our sleep, our waking. The 23.5-degree tilt of its axis gives us the seasons, a cycle of death and rebirth that is the foundation of our oldest myths, our art, our religions. The specific strength of Earth's gravity has shaped the very architecture of our bones, the strength of our hearts. We are not just asterisk on asterisk Earth, we are asterisk of asterisk Earth. In other words, a human born on a new world would be a new kind of human. Imagine a person who grows up on a planet with a gravity that is twice as strong as Earth's. They would be shorter, more powerful, with a bone density we can barely imagine. Imagine a person growing up on a world that is tidally locked to its star, with one side in perpetual, baking daylight, and the other in perpetual, frozen night. Their culture, their language, their very sense of time and space would be completely different from our own. The very idea of a day would be meaningless. What this really means is that interstellar travel is not a process of transplantation, but of transformation. We would not be spreading humanity. We would be seeding the birth of countless post-human humanities, each one a unique and beautiful expression of its new home. There is something quietly, profoundly awe-inspiring about this thought. The journey to the stars may be the mechanism by which human consciousness is freed from the beautiful, gentle confines of its original biology, allowing it to blossom into 1,000 different forms, a garden of intelligent life as diverse as the stars themselves. And in this blooming, this final, beautiful diversification of what it means to be human, we would finally find the answer to our oldest, quietest question. And in this blooming, this final, beautiful diversification of what it means to be human, we would finally find the answer to our oldest, quietest question. For all of our history, we have been a species defined by a profound and unspoken sense of cosmic loneliness. But the moment a single human mind awakens under a new sun, that loneliness ends forever. To feel the true weight of this change, imagine a person who was born and has lived their entire life as a castaway on a single tiny circular island in the middle of an infinite ocean. The sand is white and soft, The water is a brilliant turquoise, and a single leafy tree in the center provides shade and fruit. This is their entire universe. The horizon in every direction is a perfect, unbroken line where the blue of the sky meets the blue of the water. They are not unhappy. This is the only life they have ever known, but they are fundamentally, existentially alone. They may look at their own reflection in a still pool of water, but they have never seen another face. They may talk to themselves, but they have never heard another voice. The ocean, for them, is not a path. It is a boundary. It is the beautiful, shimmering wall at the end of their reality. Then one morning, after a long and quiet storm in the night, something new is on the shore. It is a small, smooth wooden object, carved into the shape of a bird. It is not something that could have grown on the island. It is not a shape the waves could have made. It is unmistakably the work of another hand, the thought of another mind. In that single, silent moment, the castaway's entire universe is rebuilt. The loneliness does not just break, it shatters into a billion pieces and vanishes. The ocean is no longer a wall, it is a road. The horizon is no longer an ending, it is a direction. The knowledge that someone else is that another island of consciousness exists somewhere out there in the vast blue, changes everything. They are still physically alone on their island, but they are no longer existentially alone in their universe. Hope, a concept they never even had a word for, has just washed ashore. In other words, the first successful interstellar journey is that small, carved bird. The moment humanity establishes a single, self-sustaining outpost on a planet orbiting another star, our cosmic isolation is over. We would have proven that the ocean is crossable. The great silence would still be there, but it would no longer be a source of fear. It would simply be the quiet between our own, now distant shores. What this really means is that the end of loneliness is not about meeting aliens. It is about meeting ourselves, our own potential, our own future. The sky above our heads would cease to be a beautiful, impenetrable ceiling. It would become a roof. We would know with absolute certainty that our house has more than one room. This knowledge would ripple backwards through time, rewriting the very meaning of our history. Every human who has ever lived, every artist, scientist and dreamer who ever looked up at the stars and wondered, "Are we alone?" would, in that moment, be answered. The answer would be a quiet and profoundly hopeful no. There's something quietly, beautifully unifying about this idea. The simple act of reaching a single new star would connect us to all of them. The entire galaxy would transform from a vast, unknowable wilderness into a neighborhood, a place of future potential. The stars at night would no longer be distant, cold points of light. They would be future homes, waiting with a quiet and patient welcome. And this beautiful answer to our loneliness makes us wonder about the journey itself. It suggests the real value was never in the arrival, but in the simple, profound beauty of the impossible question. And this beautiful answer to our loneliness makes us wonder about the journey itself. It suggests the real value was never in the arrival, but in the simple, profound beauty of the impossible question. The very act of asking, "Can we ever reach the stars?" is perhaps the most powerful engine for human progress we have ever created. The question itself builds the road, even if that road never reaches its final destination. To feel this, imagine a quiet, sun-drenched valley, a vast open field of green. In the very center of this field, a group of people gather. They have a plan, a design for a great cathedral, so grand and so complex that it will take 1,000 years to build. They know, as they lay the very first perfectly cut stone into the soft earth, that they will never see it finished. They will not see the great arches meet, 100 feet above their heads. They will never stand in the colored light streaming through the rose window of the western wall. They will certainly never see the final slender spire, so high that it seems to scratch the underbelly of the clouds. And yet, they begin. The first generation lays the foundation, a masterpiece of geometry and strength. They work with the quiet clink of a hammer on stone, the scent of cut timber and damp earth in the air. Their children grow up playing in the shadow of these rising walls, and when they are old enough, they take up their parents' tools. They learn the mathematics of the arch, the engineering of the buttress. A new problem arises: how to lift a 10-ton block of stone 100 feet into the air, and so they invent a new kind of crane, a new system of pulleys and levers. A century passes. The walls are now as high as the trees. The great-grandchildren of the first builders are now working in the vast, echoing interior, their voices softened by the immense unfinished space. They learn about acoustics, about the way a single sung note can fill a stone room. They learn about light, about how to cut a window at just the right angle to catch the morning sun. In other words, the purpose of building the cathedral was never just to have a finished cathedral. The purpose was the building itself. The grand, impossible question: can we build this glorious thing? Force them to become mathematicians, engineers, artists, and philosophers. It gave their lives a purpose that stretched beyond their own lifespan. It united them in a single, slow, beautiful, and multi-generational act of creation. This is the quest for the stars. It is our great unfinished cathedral of the mind. The seemingly impossible question, can we cross the void, is the blueprint. Every equation scribbled on a quiet blackboard, every new material forged in a laboratory, every probe we send into the darkness, is another stone laid in the foundation. The theory of relativity, our very understanding of time and space, was a gift given to us by a young man who was simply chasing a beam of light in his mind. The challenges of keeping a human being alive in the vacuum of space forced us to understand our own biology with a depth we never had before. The problem of navigating by the ghost light of distant stars pushed our mathematics and our computation to new and beautiful heights. What this really means is that the question is a mirror. In trying to solve the great puzzle of the cosmos, we are forced again and again to solve the puzzle of ourselves. The journey to the stars is the ultimate, and perhaps the most beautiful, excuse for us to become a better, wiser, and more thoughtful species. The great cathedral of this question, then, teaches us its most profound lesson. The challenge isn't one of stone or of steel. It is one of learning to hear a much slower and far more patient kind of music. The great cathedral of this question teaches us its most profound lesson. The challenge isn't one of stone or of steel. It is one of learning to hear a much slower and far more patient kind of music. The timescales involved in interstellar travel feel like a barrier, a cosmic refusal. But what if they are not a barrier at all? What if they are an invitation? An invitation to learn to dream on a different scale, to align our own fleeting human rhythms with the grand, slow, and beautiful symphony of patience that is the cosmos itself. To feel this shift in perspective, imagine yourself standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon at sunrise. The air is cold and sharp. A vast silence hangs over the immense space before you. As the first gentle rays of the sun touch the far rim, the canyon begins to awaken. The deep purple shadows soften, and the immense layered walls of rock reveal their colors: deep reds, soft oranges, gentle ochres. You are looking at a landscape that was carved not by a single violent event, but by the patient, gentle, and relentless work of a single small river over millions and millions of years. Each grain of sand carried away by the water was a single, imperceptible act of creation. You cannot see the river moving. You cannot feel the canyon deepening. And yet, you are looking at the undeniable proof of its slow, artistic work. From the perspective of a single day, the river has done nothing. From the perspective of 1,000,000 years, it has carved a masterpiece. To truly understand the canyon, you must learn to think not in the timescale of a human life, but in the timescale of the earth itself. You must learn to see time not as a rushing, frantic thing, but as a deep, slow, creative force. This is the symphony of patience. The universe does not operate on the frantic, urgent timescale of a human heartbeat. It operates on the patient, geological timescale of a star's life, a galaxy's rotation, a canyon's carving. To become an interstellar species, we must learn to compose our plans in that same slow music. We must learn to lay the first stone of a cathedral we will never see completed. We must learn to cast the first seed of a von Neumann probe whose great-great-grandchildren will report back to a civilization that is not our own. We must learn to begin journeys that will be completed by people who will only know our names from their history books. In other words, the challenge is a shift from the psychology of the individual to the psychology of the species. We must learn to see ourselves not as a single fleeting generation, but as a single, long-lived organism, a part of a continuous chain of life and knowledge that stretches back into the deep past and forward into a future we can barely imagine. What this really means is that the immense distances and the crushing timescales are not a punishment. They are a filter of a different kind. They are a cosmic test of maturity. The universe seems to be whispering a quiet, simple message. You may have my beautiful islands of light, but only when you have learned to think and to dream on a scale that is worthy of them. Only when you have learned the beauty of patience. And as we stand here, at the beginning of our own journey, that patient cosmic light is already touching us, connecting us to those distant shores in the most gentle and beautiful way imaginable. And as we stand here, at the beginning of our own journey, that patient cosmic light is already touching us, connecting us to those distant shores in the most gentle and beautiful way imaginable. The universe is not waiting for us to travel. It is already traveling to us, every single night. To feel this, step outside on a clear, moonless night. The air is cool on your skin. The world is quiet, wrapped in a blanket of soft, deep shadows. You look up, and the sky is a velvet black, scattered with a fine glittering dust of diamonds. These are the stars. And in this quiet, simple moment, something profound is happening. The universe is reaching across an ocean of time and space, and it is touching your face. That faint, ancient light you see is not just an image. It is a physical presence. Imagine a single particle of that light, a photon. It was born 1,000,000 years ago, in the unfathomable nuclear furnace at the heart of a star that is 1,000 times larger than our sun. It began its journey in a random direction, a single, perfect and indestructible messenger. For 1,000,000 years, it has been traveling. It has crossed the vast, silent emptiness between the arms of our galaxy. It has drifted through the beautiful, swirling clouds of gas and dust that are the birthplaces of new stars. It has witnessed the slow, patient dance of entire solar systems. It has never tired. It has never slowed. It has never deviated from its path. It is a silent, tireless courier, carrying a single, simple message from a past that no longer exists, on its way to a future it cannot yet know. And the destination of that 1,000,000-year journey, the final, intended recipient of this ancient cosmic letter, is you. In the final fraction of a second of its long life, it crosses the tiny precious gap of our atmosphere. It passes between your eyelashes, and its journey ends, precisely and perfectly, on the soft waiting surface of your retina. In that instant, the messenger has arrived. The energy it carried for 1,000,000 years is transformed into a tiny, electrical signal in your optic nerve. The message is delivered to your brain, and you see a star. What this really means is that starlight is not something you merely see, it is something that you receive. Every star you can see in the night sky is a star that is physically connected to you right now by a constant flowing river of these ancient, patient messengers. You are not looking at the past, you are being touched by it. In other words, the boundary between you and the universe is not your skin, it is your eye. The cosmos is not out there, it is flowing into you in a constant, gentle stream. The same photons that are ending their journey in your eye tonight began it long before any human being had ever built a city, or written a word, or even lit a fire. They have traveled through all of human history just to arrive in this single, quiet moment. There is something profoundly, beautifully intimate about this idea. You are not an observer of the universe, separate from it. You are a participant. You are the destination of 1,000,000,000, simultaneous multi-million-year-long journeys. This constant, gentle touch from the outside hints that the outward journey is also a journey in a different direction. It suggests that the final part of our exploration is not outward at all. This constant, gentle touch from the outside hints that the outward journey is also a journey in a different direction. It suggests that the final, and perhaps most important part of our exploration, is not outward at all. In the end, the grand journey to the stars is a journey inward. To feel this, imagine a lone sailor setting out in a small, sturdy boat to cross a vast, uncharted ocean. Their goal is a distant, mythical island, a land they have only ever seen in their dreams. At first, the challenges are all outside. The sailor must learn the language of the wind, the subtle moods of the water, the intricate dance of the stars in the night sky. They must become a master of their vessel, understanding every rope, every timber, every creak and groan of the hull. Their mind is focused entirely on the external world, on the practical problems of survival and navigation. But as the weeks turn into months, and the last familiar shoreline has long since vanished behind the unbroken line of the horizon, a change begins to happen. The sailor has mastered the wind and the waves. The daily tasks of managing the boat have become a quiet, subconscious rhythm. Now, in the long, silent hours, with only the sound of the water against the hull and the vast empty sky above, the true journey begins. The real uncharted territory is not the ocean in front of them, but the ocean inside them. They must face the profound loneliness, the subtle whispers of fear in the deep of the night, the immense weight of the silence. To survive, the sailor must become their own companion, their own doctor, their own philosopher. The journey across the water has become a journey into the deepest parts of their own soul. They did not set out to discover themselves, but the ocean has left them no other choice. We are that sailor. The void is that ocean. The journey to the stars, with all its impossible challenges, is a mirror held up to our species. To survive the long, dark years in a closed system, we are forced to master the science of our own biology, to understand the intricate, delicate clockwork of our own bodies and minds in a way we never have before. To build a society that can withstand centuries of isolation and purpose, we must first understand the deepest currents of our own psychology, our own cultures, our own need for meaning. To face the great silence, we must first learn to be comfortable in our own quiet. In other words, every problem the universe sets for us is a question about ourselves, disguised as a problem of physics or engineering. What this really means is that the great dark void is the perfect mirror. It reflects back at us not our image, but our nature. It shows us our fragility, our ingenuity, our immense capacity for hope, and our profound need for connection. The stars are the destination, but the path to them leads directly through the human heart. There is a quiet, beautiful finality to this idea. The quest to leave our world is the very thing that will teach us the most about it. We reach for the alien, and in doing so, we are forced, finally, to truly understand what it means to be human. And so, we finally arrive at the end of our long, quiet journey, ready to ask our first question one last time, but in a new and much softer voice. And so we arrive at the end of our journey. We have travelled across an ocean of time and space, of thought and of dreams, and we have come back to the quiet room where we began. And we are ready to ask our first question one last time, but in a new and much softer voice. Is interstellar travel impossible? After everything we have seen, after all the beautiful and terrible challenges, we can now hear the universe's answer. The answer is not a word. It is not a yes or a no. The answer is a vast, patient and beautiful silence. It is not the silence of an empty room, a cold refusal. It is the silence that follows the final perfect note of a grand symphony, a quiet so full of meaning and emotion that to speak would be to shatter the beauty of the moment. It is a silence that holds everything. In this silence you can feel the immense crushing weight of the difficulty. You can feel the mind-bending emptiness between the stars, the tyranny of the rocket equation, the gentle but constant rain of cosmic rays that wears all things down. You can feel the slow, heartbreaking separation of the twins, the lonely return to a world that no longer knows you, the profound fragility of a tiny living world in a closed glass bottle. You can feel the walls of the great filters, the paradoxes of time, and the impossible delicacy of a tunnel made of soap bubbles. All of this is in the silence, the universe's honest and unwavering acknowledgement that the journey is as close to impossible as anything can be. In other words, the silence is not empty. It is a landscape, and if you listen closely, you can also hear, in that same perfect quiet, the whispers of possibility. You can hear the gentle bending of time that offers a traveller its strange and beautiful gift. You can hear the elegant, silent math of a wave of space-time, a surfer's ride on the fabric of reality itself. You can hear the patient, exponential bloom of a billion dandelion seeds, spreading life on a cosmic wind. You can hear the quiet courage of a species that dares to ask such a beautiful, impossible question in the first place, that dares to dream of building a cathedral it will never see finished. What this really means is that the universe is not giving us an answer we can write down, it is giving us itself. The answer to the question of our place among the stars is the night sky itself, in all its dark, silent and glittering majesty. It holds, in a perfect, breathtaking balance, both the profound difficulty and the endless quiet possibility. And so now, here, in the quiet of your room, you can let the question go. It has done its work. It has been our ship, carrying us across the cosmos, and it has brought us safely back to this soft, quiet harbour, ready for rest. The great cosmic silence of the universe is now just the gentle, peaceful silence of the night. Let it be a comfort. Let it be a blanket. There is nothing more to solve tonight. There are no more distances to cross. There is only the slow, gentle, and easy journey into your own quiet dreams. Sleep well.